Welcome back to the non-dual lectionary. This is the 15th Sunday after Pentecost in year C, and we've got a tricky one today. So let's jump right into it. Let's take a look. It is from Luke chapter 16, verses 1 through 13, called the parable of the dishonest manager, but we'll talk about that too. Then Jesus said to the disciples, there was a rich man who had a manager, and charges were brought to him that this man was squandering his property. So he summoned him and said to him, what is this that I hear about you? Give me an accounting of your management, because you cannot be my manager any longer. Then the manager said to himself, what will I do now that my master is taking the position away from me? I am not strong enough to dig, and I am ashamed to beg. I have decided what to do so that when I am dismissed as manager, people may welcome me into their homes. So summoning his master's debtors one by one, he asked the first, how much do you owe my master? He answered, 100 jugs of olive oil. He said to him, take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 50. Then he asked another, and how much do you owe? He replied, 100 containers of wheat. He said to him, take your bill and make it 80. And his master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the children of this age are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than are the children of light. And I tell you, make friends for yourselves by means of dishonest wealth, so that when it is gone, they may welcome you into the eternal homes. Whoever is faithful in a very little is faithful also in much, and whoever is dishonest in a very little is dishonest also in much. If then you have not been faithful with the dishonest wealth, who will entrust to you the true riches? And if you have not been faithful with what belongs to another, who will give you what is your own? No slave can serve two masters, for a slave will either hate the one and love the other, or be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and wealth. Whoo boy. I mean, on its face, what jumps out at me, first of all, is this is not what we would think of as a normal moral story, right? We've got Jesus as teacher here explicitly, right? Jesus is telling stories to the disciples. He's telling a parable. And what we have at the beginning is a manager who is squandering his property. Now, it doesn't say the manager's taking it for himself, right? Just that it's being squandered. It's not being, used for the rich man's highest benefit. But then what the manager does, right, when he's accused of this, is seemingly act very selfishly. Right? I've decided what I'm going to be in big trouble when I'm fired. So let me, quite frankly, further squander the manager's property, right? Get him even less, but that way the people will like me. And what we get So the normal moral story, right, would just be, oh, and then, he's caught and faces his punishment or something. But instead, the master says, oh, look, good job. You acted shrewdly. And Jesus says, yeah, make friends for yourself by means of dishonest wealth. Use that stuff to, I mean, explicit on its face here, right? Use this stuff to just get people close to you so that, um, that things will come well to you. Although he does say that they may welcome you into the eternal homes. Well, that's very interesting. And then, a couple things that seem a little bit more straightforward at the end, the kind of moral of the story that fits, I think, better into our normal way of thinking about, especially Jesus as social justice teacher, right? Um, you can't serve God and wealth. Okay, that's an easy one, right? And you can't serve two masters, so you kind of have to decide. And if you've not been faithful with the dishonest wealth, who will entrust to you the true riches? And whoever's faithful in a little is faithful also in very much. Whoever's dishonest, and that's a fine statement, but it doesn't seem to fit, right? The rest of it. So first of all, I think one of the keys here is well, a couple of keys that I'll throw out. The first is um, when it says dishonest here, right? Um, and this is when I get confused. I go back to the Greek words too. So the Greek word is closer to like it can be unjust, it can also be unrighteous or something like that. So one way to think about that is just like worldly. Um, and but you get a little dangerous with that one too. But then the other one, right? I mean, it's a story about something happening outside. And what if we think about it as everything outside is everything is also something happening inside, right? We break down the barrier between the two. So then first of all, this first story, right? I mean, what I love about it, right, is it just kind of stops your head for a second, stops your mind. Wait a minute, what's going on here, right? This person's acting selfishly, and Jesus is saying, the master in the story is saying, ah, good job, you're being shrewd. And then that last statement, make friends for yourself by means of dishonest wealth, so that when it is gone, they may welcome you into the eternal homes. So one thing I think like two levels here, right? The one is, and I think it's starting to emerge as I'm talking about it, right? I hope it's already coming up, but I'll make it very clear, is the statement of something like, um, you know, when we're all in a way custodians, right, for the riches that are just of the world, of earth, of existence. And if what you do with that is try to maximize that, right? Try to get more for yourself or for, whoever you're serving, the world or, somebody else or anything else, uh, that's not going to work out so well in that eternal home sense, right? There's no spiritual practice or growth that says if you get this thing, if you build more for yourself, that's going to be the key to unlocking true nature, right? That's going to be the key to ultimate happiness. I mean, pretty basic here, right? Not just true nature, not just realizing, your fundamental nature and your oneness with the divine and all of that, but just it's not going to work out well for you in the happiness sense, in the fulfillment sense. Okay, that seems pretty clear. Um, and a good lesson, right? Like a nice lesson here, and a nice way of kind of getting into it, right? Of like, wait a minute, this gets into my head in a weird way. Um, but secondly, let's dig in a little further, right? What about that key of like what's going on the outside is really also in the inside, right? So what is, the dishonest wealth and the master? I mean, if we really want to have fun with it, right? You can even see like, if you haven't been serving if your actions haven't been giving you what you want, if you haven't been serving that like ego psychological self well, and you say, I'm going to do something that, I don't want this at all. The pointing or like the sense of like I'm going to do something different. I gotta, I'm gonna change what I'm doing. I'm gonna, act differently. This isn't, getting me what I want. And the sense that when we do that, the quote unquote right way to do it, right, would be to do something that like, gets you more, right? Like you get a new job or you go back to school or you network better, right? And it creates for you something better for yourself, right? And I know I'm going externally here, but even internally, right? Like you're gonna refix like the way that your goals are aimed or your vision for your future, all of that. And instead, what the manager here does, right? Like the internal self, the what the felt sense of self. How about that? Because it could be everything, right? Doesn't do that. Instead, it says, wait a minute. Um, I don't want to be left behind. My true my internal self, myself sense doesn't want to be left behind. So what I'm going to do instead, right, is start to um is not try to maximize what's best for that ego manager self, right? But to bring in more through connection, through relation, right? But I don't want to emphasize relationship or connection like in the traditional sense either, right? But through like integration, right? Um, and in that sense, right? Like that master self can say, "Oh, look, you know what? You've actually brought together something that I didn't even know I wanted so much." Um, and that then can open the door, I think, right? Like that sense of integration, that sense of like um, not trying to maximize even happiness, right? Or even like fulfillment or like success, especially like success or my felt sense of like, yes, I'm good or anything like that. But instead, that like, a little bit of, I mean, it doesn't go all the way here, but a bit of emptiness, right? A bit of lack of success, not a bit of failure in there, right? A bit of, what does this open up for me? And what is it, that opening, right? That emptiness in that sense can allow something else to move in. And that moving in here, right, can be like the welcoming into the internal homes idea. So, um, yeah, you cannot serve God and wealth externally, right? Like a very clear message from Jesus in a lot of spots. Okay, and that's a big one because we miss it all the time, right? I mean, come on. There's all sorts of people who've decided that they call themselves Christian, and that does not mean what it says explicitly. And I mean, come on. I'm not even going to get into that too much, but from that non-dual perspective also, right? The idea of Jesus as teacher, as wisdom teacher, pointing to the true nature within, is saying, you cannot live out your true nature. You cannot is too strong. I mean, he says cannot, right? But it's going to be extremely difficult for true nature to arise and manifest within you if you are focused on success and wealth and all those external things. Period. Okay, great. But also internally, right? If you are still trying to maximize that sense of goodness for yourself, right? That sense of success for yourself, even if it doesn't match externally, right? But if you're trying to serve that ego self, right? That worldly self in that way, it's not going to work either. And only by means of like this emptying in a way, right? This like, I'm owed this, but I'm going to give it up. And in that way, creating this space that allows something else to move in. And in that way, that right, we can say that we've been faithful with the dishonest wealth, right? The dishonest wealth meaning here, like all the goodness and all the like self, esteem that we've built up, right? And instead, like what we've been faithful with that is not to build more of it, right? But to use it in a way that opens up for something bigger in ourself to move in, the true riches. So there, woo, through that roundabout way, I think we've kind of landed on like, man, this is a challenging one just on its face, right? It doesn't give you the moral story that we kind of expect. It seems to value selfishness of this manager, right, over something else. But then, the way Jesus tags with those like clear statements at the end. And then again, if we roll those clear statements back through the whole story and think about it both in that external and that internal sense, again, I mean, I think it opens up something really cool. And fundamentally, as always, right? Like what's really going on constantly, right? Is that if true nature is always present and the awakening experience is more like true nature waking up consciously within. It's always there. It's always present. And it's more like, recognizing that in a manifested way, right? Then what Jesus is pointing at is like, hey, this is already what is, right? This is already what's going on. You are like all of this is opened up, right? You can try to serve wealth, you'll fail. But by trying to, you're going to kind of keep frustrating yourself that way. But even in that frustration, right? And in that opening up of like giving up something, you can open yourself sort of more clearly to what always and already is. So another good one, as always.